Hey, what's going on, everybody? For MCP Chicago, I'm Vincent Curkov, and this is Alfredo's Size 3 Taco Truck, a Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast, the show with hot strats and even hotter wings. And joining me today is Pat Van Value, the king of value, known for his critically acclaimed segment, the Van Value Minute. And by his side, I have Nate Horn, our resident list thief. Do you have a cool list? He'll take it from you. You should post it on in our Discord. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vince.
Oh, yeah, you guys are here all the time.
First time, long time.
So, Nate, how are you with spicy food?
I'm generally pretty good. I don't usually go for like the super hot wings, but like Chinese or Thai food, I usually get fairly hot. So optimistic.
And then, Pat, we've done this once in the past. Why on earth did you let me trick you into this again?
And so, okay, so you just revealed to me today that it was worse than I thought what I had agreed to. In the last time we did this, there were only 6 hot sauces, and there are more this time. So
A couple more.
this will be a little more adventurous, I think.
Right, and I'm sure we stopped on what is essentially 7
Yeah, probably.
here. All right. So with that, let's go for our first one. And we're starting at the blue label and going clockwise.
Yes.
Nobody messed that up.
I'm not messing it up.
Yeah, everybody's got the right.
We've talked about it like 6 times, and I finally remember.
This is the classic.
The classic.
I'll probably put it on screen or some nonsense.
Okay.
All right. So you guys don't know what we're doing today, really. You don't know what the topic is.
We do not.
All right. So in classic Hot One style, this is an interview show. So we're just going to let everybody get to know you guys a little bit better.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah. Oh, boy. Right. We're going to start with Nate.
Okay.
Nate, as a longtime fan of Strictly the Worst, what annoyed you the most about the Strictly the Worst host/show before joining the cast?
Oh God. That's a good question.
Can't come up with an answer.
Can't come with an answer.
It was a
Well,
perfect
also
show.
keep in mind one of us isn't here, so if you had to absolutely take a couple of shots,
I mean, there's the fucking lame answer, right? Of like, oh, I wasn't on it. Is obviously the biggest problem with it. I don't have a specific example of when this happened, but I have memories of actually getting most frustrated where there's a couple times that I feel like, because you always want to be the person arguing, right? You will always volunteer to be the devil's advocate.
Absolutely,
And there was a few times where like you're clearly digging your heels in just to like stretch out a segment in a way, but like you're not actually arguing in an interesting way. You're just putting up barriers to make it seem like an argument was happening. And so there's a couple times where I just wanted to smack you and say, just move on, find something else to talk about.
I don't do that now. I absolutely still do that. All right. And then, Pat, what's something about the behind the scenes aspect of the podcast that most people don't know, but you wish that they did?
Well, recently we can see each other while we do it, which has been exciting at times when, do stupid things with Zoom filters. I'm trying to think of it.
So for people that don't know, we used to podcast just in the dark, right? With just like the lights off. Clearly we all live next to each other and we just like all right over. In actuality, Nate's from Cali.
Yeah.
And we live here in Chicago. And so we do it all remotely via Discord chat.
And I guess that is maybe the biggest behind the scenes thing that is like different to people that, used to listen to Strictly the Worst versus what it's like now, is that like adjusting to the doing it remotely on both, like us actually doing it and producing it has been something, but I think we're getting better at it. So,
All right, you guys ready to move on?
sure. That was a relaxing start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it wasn't bad at all. This is Vinegar and Bliss.
Yeah, I found out I have a fucking cut on my lip.
Oh,
Oh, you're
Oh, no.
so screwed.
Uh-huh.
All right, so back to Nate. How has your love of fighting games prepared you for picking a main in Marvel Crisis Protocol?
So that's a really interesting question because I actually, in all minis games, I've had a much easier time picking a main than in any fighting game. And the biggest reason for that is actually the financial investment you have to make with a minis game. Like you have to put money and then time into painting this stuff up, which makes it easier for me to stay committed to a thing. Especially like back in the day when I played War Machine, right? Like changing a War Machine army is just an insurmountable obstacle. So it's like, I got to do the best with what I've got because this is the budget I put in, right? Marvel's made that a little easier, but I still largely commit to the things I wanted and already owned. As long as they're good enough, right? You know, like if they're a bad faction, obviously I'm not going to play that. But in both Guild Ball and eventually Marvel, we landed in a place where the ones I liked best aesthetically, which is Hunters and Guardians, also just happened to be good. And so it was super easy.
But they both started off terrible.
They both did start off terrible, yes. And
I had insanely oppressive.
A real crisis up until they got buffed into being good. And then there was no problem.
All right. And then, Pat, you have a not so well-known love of cars and racing. Can you break down what drew you to the sport? And what car is A-Force?
What car is A-Force? Okay. I guess, okay. So unsurprisingly, the thing that I think, well, I do like cars, but also I like F1. Mm-hmm. So the racing series, I think the thing that got me into it was that it wasn't just like, it wasn't NASCAR. Like they weren't stock cars. So like it was somewhere between an engineering thing and a sport kind of. So like it was people sort of like Nate was saying, like trying to compete with what they have, but it was noticeably different across teams. And A-Force is, A-Force is like a 2020 Red Bull or something where like one person can get a lot out of it and they're kind of middling otherwise.
You could have said like any card, we would just have to believe you.
Yeah, sure. But like
this question is for like one person.
Yeah, somebody's going to fact check me.
Oh my God, it has my faction and there's Formula One and that's everything that I ever wanted.
Kevin will understand the Formula One part at least.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Wing 3. What is this one? I don't know. We're
we faced them away from us.
the wrong way. The Hoff Haus sauce.
Haus sauce.
Well, I assume the audience wants to see. Like that side looks better for the camera.
This one is hotter,
It's
but
hotter.
not.
I still like this one. This one's
This is still nowhere near stunt territory.
This is definitely I think the best one we've had so far, at least in.
Yeah,
I like this one a lot.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's good.
But it is doing some worrying things to the tips of my lips. That is probably foreboding. All right, Pat. A-Force seems underrepresented in the community lately. Pitch me why I should be playing A-Force.
You get to play She-Hulk and you get to play Drop Off. So I guess mostly you get to play Drop Off. Okay. But I think it's hard because I think, well, I don't know. Maybe people who have started playing after Drop Off was banned don't like know how crazy it is, kind of, which is sort of me, and maybe why I'm not actually having that good of a time with it. But yeah, I think you get to play Drop Off, and Stalwart Determination's a crazy card. It makes some matchups that like. If you look at playing She-Hulk or think about it and it sounds like a terrible place into like Webs or something or Wakanda, that card makes it feel very different for at least a turn. So
yeah, the card takes like an unwinnable matchup. It makes you impossible to beat on one turn.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever outscored you on the Stalwart turn.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the big stuff. I think like the reason people don't play him is just because of like all the other cool stuff out there. And if you want sort of generic good guys, there's Avengers too, which come in the core box. So,
Nate, you are our resident expert of Guardians of the Galaxy. What is the number one mistake that new Guardians of the Galaxy players make? I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be a new player, but it could be even seasoned players. Maybe.
Sure, yeah. So I'm trying to figure out what the number, because like it's an interesting problem where like my default answer used to be that they weren't playing Lovable Misfits enough, right? Because that card is insanely good and it is hard to use, and there's a bunch of times where I've explained how to use it, so I'm not going to go over that yet again, right? But getting mileage out of that card I think is super important, but I'm also considering cutting it from my current version of the list, so I kind of think I can't say that anymore. Just because I've been playing a lot more with X23 and Honey Badger in there and playing less affiliated models than I did before. And there's a threshold of characters using that card before it's actually good, right? You need ideally 5 characters or 4. And when I'm only playing 3 or 4 affiliated characters, it's loses some value there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess beyond that, I've seen... So beyond that, I would say that all of the Guardians except Ronan are legitimately very, very good in Guardians, and that people shouldn't sleep on what Drax and Gamora, I think those are the 2 that get ignored the most, and they both bring a lot to the faction and have very important roles to play. And people just kind of ignore them for the easier to, the guns, right? Star-Lord and Rocket and Nebula are kind of easier to play and more straightforward in what they do, but like Drax is critical to some matchups and should not be slept on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, why do you think that Lizard sees so much more play than Drax? Because they're like their kit and their like what they do on the table is remarkably similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a vacuum, Lizard is the slightly better model, right? Because the advantages Drax has over Lizard is if he starts in range, he gets to do more damage, right? Like his attacks are better than Lizard's. If he has a bunch of power, he can displace more models than Lizard. But Lizard is way more mobile than him, which is Drax's biggest problem, right? And there's matchups like into Sam Avengers where Sam and Iron Man and Vision, all these models can just push and bully Drax around. He's way less exciting, right? His like walk up and maybe attack and throw is worse than Lizard's because he's slower.
Yeah, and I think it's deceptive that he is slower.
Right.
Because they have the same movement speed.
Yep.
Right. And they're both like melee pieces.
Yep.
But he's range 2 and on a smaller base versus range 3 and on a bigger base. So it's a sizable difference.
Yes.
All right. You guys ready to move on?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Wing 4, this is Los Calientes.
That was okay.
It's all right. I don't think it's...
I like it a lot so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're picking tasty stuff, at least so far.
That also, I don't know.
100% sure, unless this hits late. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
this
sure
did
this
not
is
seem that
actually
hot.
significantly hotter or even noticeably hotter.
I think it's less hot.
Yeah, me too.
Like I would almost wonder if we did them in the wrong order, but I know we didn't.
All right. Pat, as the king of finding value where it arguably shouldn't exist, if you were forced to reach for con food, what do you go for?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Usually Adepticon organizers don't listen. Usually I cheat and, break the rules.
Like you bring food?
Yeah. But usually get a pretty good deal on like a hot dog or something. It's like, you can avoid buying drinks, usually getting a deal out of that.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't buy a lot of con food. I haven't gone on that search, but maybe I'll have to this weekend.
All right. What's the stuff you smuggle into the con then? Where's the value?
I mean, anything. It used to be Cliff Bars. Just show up with like a giant bag of Cliff Bars at LVO, and then not have to go deal with eating at a casino.
Were you on the same train as bots about which of those are the best ones?
Not at all.
Okay.
I actually like at some point asked him for that recommendation one and bought some, and I thought they were actively bad.
What is this recommendation?
So they're the nut butter ones or something?
Yeah,
like
they're
that?
like filled with peanut butter, and it's not.
They're really good. No, see, I think he's absolutely right, and I can't find them anymore. So I guess the market has decided that bots and I were wrong, but I thought he was 100% correct on that recommendation.
I thought they just I like peanut butter, and I thought it just tasted like bad peanut butter.
My roommate in college ruined peanut butter for me.
That could go a lot of places.
Yeah, no, not in like some. Okay, he used to leave it out, and it would grow things.
Yeah,
so now it's not like I still love the taste of peanut butter, and you like put it in candy, and I'm still pretty good with peanut butter. It's the smell of peanut butter that triggers me now.
Oh,
right. But it's getting better. It's been like 10 years. It's almost back. All right, Nate, as a connoisseur of all things Disney, what are the must-hit attractions at Disneyland, and why are none of them Marvel?
How long do I have to answer this question?
I can always cut it down.
Okay.
This is the one where Nate gets excited.
Well, I just have a lot of things to say as someone who just went to Disney last weekend. A lot of fresh thoughts on this, right? So, one, I will actually think I was very skeptical of the Marvel stuff they're adding to the park. I wasn't, so it's in. So everything I say is about Disneyland, not Disney World. I don't know shit about Disney World. Don't at me about it. So they put all the Marvel stuff in DCA, which is the lesser of the two parks that exist in California, right? Mm-hmm. There's the Disneyland, where all the stuff you've probably heard of is, and then there's DCA. And so I was kind of skeptical of what they were doing over there, but it's actually come together really well. And I think the final product there is really impressive. And it kind of funny to the parallel, much better than the Star Wars park. Right. So like the Marvel movies, I think, are better kept than the Star Wars movies. And it turns out the Marvel park actually feels better than the stupid Star Wars park, which I was not expecting with how much money they put behind Galaxy's Edge. So don't sleep on the Marvel stuff.
Oh, okay.
But the single best ride in Disneyland that people do not give enough respect is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Okay.
It's one of the old, like it's a Walt original dark ride where you just sit in a little car and go through track and have a story told to you, right? But it's fucking wild. So at the start of it, you're just going on a drive through the English countryside, and then you crash into some dude's manor house and like drive through his dining room and make a mess of that. And then you end up on the streets of London, crashing through the docks and knocking stuff over and setting off explosions. So then you are sent in front of the court where the judge sentenced you to jail. So then you go to jail. Then you break out of jail, and then in your escape, you are hit by a train, and then you go to hell, literal hell.
Oh, okay.
You meet the devil who points at you and laughs, and then you turn the corner and a dragon like breathes at you, and then the ride ends.
Huh.
It is like 2 minutes long, 2.5 minutes long. So this stuff is just happening super quickly, but it's the only Disney ride where you get to die and go to hell, and I think that's great.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming at all. That's interesting.
All right, moving right along. What do we got next? Hotheads, Revolutionary.
It's a little hotter. Not mad yet. But that is like...
No, we're getting there, though.
We're getting there. Yeah, I mean, but this is like still in the territory where like... this isn't a hot sauce I would use regularly, but... I'm not like surprised that it's a hot sauce yet.
Well, it's also like this one's getting hotter as we literally talk.
A little bit, yeah.
Like I bit it, I was fine, and it keeps
was a slow
going. It
burn.
feels like the more that I aerate it, the worse it's
Throw it a
getting.
bit.
Okay. Well, we'll see how this goes.
All right, both of you play on camera quite a bit, whether it was run the length or just top tables and being streamed. Do you feel any extra pressure, and how do you deal with it?
I don't. I deal with it poorly. Like I absolutely play worse in high pressure games than I do outside of that. Like, and I've lost multiple high profile Guild Ball games making like stupid mistakes. So I'm waiting for Nate's answer so I can learn.
Yeah, I don't know. So for me, I actually tend to perform about as well, if not better, for tabletop games on camera. I've also been on fighting game streams a couple times. I am a disaster there. And I haven't figured out what the difference is between those two experiences yet. But the way I end up losing games I shouldn't is on games when I'm paying less attention, right? And like if my ADD kicks in and I just kind of zone out. But when I'm on camera, I'm more focused about, feeling people watching me keeps my brain on track. And so my attention doesn't wander nearly as much on any of those games. And so I actually find it helpful to be on camera. But I don't know if that's particularly useful to anyone else.
No, that's an interesting way to think about it. I don't know.
So you feel like you're like your mental game doesn't suffer, but maybe your mechanics, like at least for fighting games, or like your execution.
Everything suffers with fighting games. Yeah, I have no idea what the difference is, right? Like why my mental is better with tabletop games than not fighting games when I'm on camera. I haven't figured that one out yet. I should talk to a therapist about it, I guess. But.
All right, moving right along, guys. What's in the 6th spot here? It's the one with the pure white label. I don't know what it is though. Senor
The simpler the label, the more scared I am sometimes.
Senor Lechuga,
Lechuga.
I guess.
Pat, on a recent episode, you said you don't like building lists and would just like to be given a strong list to play.
Yep.
So for the internet innovators out there, what do you want out of an MCP roster?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. There is not being able to make terrible choices, or like having the list building like at game time also be somewhat obvious, and like not having a ton of models that only get played in narrow situations. I guess I also sort of the more, in some ways, like I think the longer the game that you actually play and like the more opportunities to make decisions, the better my MCP outcomes. So like I tend to really screw up deployment in turn one and then like get really behind and sort of come back into the game by making like reasonable scenario plays as the game goes on. So, you know, durable teams probably better than the opposite.
Okay.
So She-Hulk, you know, especially in the all you got era, was not so much that. But
So something that lets you like get into the later game where you feel like over a long number of decisions, you can kind of outpace your opponent.
wow, that's my best chance. Yeah.
All right. Nate, you mentioned to me getting strange looks at LVO for saying you didn't want to play in Season 7 of the TTS League. Can you explain to all the online grinders why you aren't participating?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if, like, strange looks is the best way to put it, but I did have a number of opponents, right, like after our games, be like, oh, what are you playing in Season 7? And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to. And it did surprise people, right? Like, for basically all the podcasters and the competitive players, right, the TTS seasons are super popular for good reason. But I found for myself there was a couple factors into why it just wasn't working for me, right? One of the things is that I do like this game, even as a competitive player. The only reason I got into tabletop games was to be social. And I think trying to be social over the internet with people you've never met before is super hard, right? Like trying to get any kind of banter going on these TTS games, I found really difficult to do, right? All my opponents were perfectly pleasant, right? I had no like bad experiences or anything like that, but they were just like quieter affairs overall than when you're playing with strangers in person. I have a much easier time getting a rapport going in person. I also found that if I'm playing on TTS at home, that I have kind of what we're talking about with camera, I have a really hard time keeping my attention focused on the game that's happening. When it's really easy to just alt tab and go to Twitter. You know, when my opponent's taking a while to think in person, I'm usually like staring at the board and at least trying to think about what's going to happen. But on those TTS games, it would just be too easy for me to go see what's going on Discord or Twitter or whatever. So I wouldn't be paying attention. I would make bad decisions. I get punished for those, and then I get mad at myself for making those, right? Like I wasn't having fun because I got upset at my own level of play not meeting my normal standards. And just kind of came to the conclusion that I haven't found a good way to force my attention to stay on the TTS games, and I was just beating myself up every time I would lose. And I'm not doing this to have that experience, right? And so, especially now that real life events are happening, I have game nights, right? I'm spoiled in that I have 2 different game stores doing monthly tournaments. So if I want to go to an event, I have 2 a month to pick from. And so especially since I'm spoiled on that front, I decided there's just no point in me playing in the TTS stuff anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And the game is just so much better in person. Like,
yes.
Shockingly better.
Absolutely.
You disagree, Pat?
I don't know. I haven't played enough in person to have a strong opinion about it, I guess. But there are definitely things I really like about TTS that I do think are harder in real life. So
like what?
Like it auto setting stuff up. Is like so like maybe once I start playing
setting up in real life.
Pre-marked mats.
Pre-marked mats would go a long way. Like, and as much as I kind of think like big terrain is fiddly on TTS, I think it's even worse in person.
Yes, I definitely had in my game yesterday. I lost track of Black Panther because he was behind a building, and it was just like out of sight, out of mind. And I just like was like, oh, I was like, don't you have another act? Don't I get to go first next turn? Oh, Black Panther! I just walked, went into melee with Black Panther.
There's definitely like some things are easier and some things are worse with terrain, right? Because like being able to stand adjacent to a building is so much easier in real life than most of the TTS terrain pieces where you're trying to like hide behind a corner of something.
Yeah, and like the in-person interaction element, I'm sure like makes it better in the long run. It just is an adjustment from mostly playing on TTS.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if miniature games were a lonely hobby, I don't think I would be.
Yeah.
I'd do something else.
Yeah. All right, let's go 7. What is this? Chili something, I believe?
Yeah, it's the green one.
Chili Lengua.
You left off
fire.
Yeah, the fire part.
I almost
Number 6 was not spicy at all.
I felt mine was okay. I don't know.
It didn't feel spicier than the ones that came before it.
Oh boy, here we go. Oh.
You know, I'm getting that classic overconfidence that happens on that I've seen a bunch of times on the actual show on Wing 7, where they're like, "I got this. Nothing's wrong. I'm having a good time."
Yeah.
Like this one is definitely building, and again,
But
I still like. I could do these. Would I have a whole plate of them? No, but I could do like a 5.
I wouldn't seek it out.
Oh.
But like if I was doing it to be polite, sure.
To be polite, to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, well, no, like if somebody was like, "Hey man, here's 5 artisanal wings," I'd be like, "Oh yes, thank you."
My dead grandma's recipe.
Yes, exactly.
All right. So we've reached our Longshanks trivia moment. Brought to you by the Longshanks, the best tournament software for running MCP events. So how this is going to work is, Pat, I'm going to ask you a question about Longshanks statistics, and Nate, you're going to explain the true answer, and you're going to tell us a story as to why, or try to solve the riddle behind.
I like the segment a lot.
This. Of course, you don't like your part, Pat. So, Pat, since the big errata patch, who has the highest win rate in the game?
Like the captain?
The faction.
Oh, faction. Is there's a minimum number of games, but it's like not.
It's not starred by low number of games. You can be wrong here. These are 1 in 18.
Black Order?
No. It is Wakanda.
I guess I sort of knew that. Yeah. All right.
And so Nate, why do you think that like Wakanda has such a high rate? And actually, so it used to be when I wrote this question, and I double checked it right before we started.
Oh, smart.
They had like a 5 percentage point lead on the next closest. And now Web Warriors and them are the same percentage.
That makes sense to me.
Right.
Okay.
But Wakanda is just placed above them, I think, because of alphabetizing.
It does some rounding.
Yeah, there's rounding. That you
Oh, yeah,
just
there's
said,
probably, okay. So why do you think Wakanda is in the place that it is? And it has like just shy of 200 games.
That's still. Do you know the sample sizes on the more like?
Maybe it's just over 200 games. I don't know. I didn't see the star next to it. It's a 60% win rate.
Yeah, the 200 games is enough to talk about it at least. But I do think like super popular factions are going to be. If I remember right, looking at this myself, right, I think there's a bit of a jump. Okay, that one's hot.
Oh, it's in you now?
Yes, this is the first one to actually have some feeling behind it.
I'm sweating a little bit.
Why do I think that is? I think it's, this is an interesting thing to say in like our 2 episodes ago. I was just talking about how bad Wakanda is in the current meta, right? And I still believe that, funny enough. I think Wakanda are still really strong. Like Black Panther is still very strong. Shuri is still strong. Okoye is still good enough, and they're definitely still cheap, right? You can definitely splash a lot of whatever you want into there and still meet with success. I would think part of why they're strong, and I've suffered this myself, is that I think people are less practiced at dealing with their specific brand of shenanigans because I've been practicing a bunch into my friend Avengers list that has a lot of overlap with what Wakanda does, which is a bunch of ranged pushes. And I've had to retrain myself to remember to backstop models because there's been a period here where you just didn't have to bother.
Yeah.
Right? Like, into Black Order, backstopping doesn't matter. Into Web Warriors, backstopping barely matters.
Yeah. It's
right?
more front stopping.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a skill. Yep. It's a skill that I just kind of like neglected and forgotten about and was getting blown out by, Sam ricocheting stuff, pushing me into oblivion. Right. And so I think that like playing against Wakanda is a specialized skill set that a lot of people probably don't have. I think when a faction doesn't get a new release for a very long time, the only people playing it are the people super dedicated to it. Right.
True hardcores.
Right.
Yeah. I guess that was kind of like what I was trying to come up with, right? Like I knew it wasn't going to be Avengers. Like Sam's not that broken, right? So like it had to be something that he's not broken.
We'll
enough.
see.
Okay, so like to be the highest win rate, you need something that is like strong and not exceptionally widely played. So in some ways, I'm actually surprised Web Warriors are that high because like a lot of people, like spider people.
That just shows you how busted spiders are.
Apparently, yeah. So like Wakanda kind of makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. So let's move on to question 2 with this. Pat, what are the 3 most played factions according to the Ghost Year Index?
Wait, most played
Most played.
or the highest on the Ghost Year Index?
So no, the highest on one axis of the Ghost Year Index.
Okay.
What are the most played factions?
You just wanted to
the
say
Ghost Year.
you just wanted to say Ghost Year.
I just wanted to say Ghost Year Index. Yeah, you caught
You
me.
should have asked what
So
are the
go-
most overplayed.
So, viewers, if you haven't been on the Longshanks, the Ghost Year Index is a chart that maps play rate versus win rate.
Yes.
So, what are the 3 most played factions on that?
And so, just to explain why that's valuable, right? So it builds a trend line,
Yeah.
and then you can see which factions are "quote unquote" overplayed or underplayed. Right? If you're drastically above or below the line, it gives you an idea of maybe this faction isn't as good as we thought it was, or this faction's being slept on.
Yeah.
Again, it's all not enough data to tell you really any truth. But it's fun to think
interesting.
about. Yeah.
Okay. Couple questions.
Yeah,
'Cause,
fire away.
I assume this is not at all normalized to how long they've been out. This is just
No,
raw number of games.
so all my data that I pulled for this starts from the patch,
Okay.
which I think is the fairest way to do
When
it
did Midnight Suns come out?
before the patch.
Okay.
So I
do you care
believe
about the order or just the 3?
Just the 3.
X-Men, Avengers, Midnight Suns.
X-Men, Avengers, Midnight Suns. You got Avengers.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I actually thought it was pretty shocking. So it's Avengers.
Yeah.
Can I guess?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Well, I heard you just say wet. Like I heard you start to say wet.
Web Warriors.
Web Warriors. Is the
The third one is the one I think is weird.
Is it Brotherhood?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's Criminal Syndicate,
Okay. Yeah.
which I think is kind of wild to me. That like because Criminal Syndicate, like we've largely thought is like an unloved child, but it's like right there with Web Warriors. It's like right behind Web Warriors.
So
It's like 600 something games.
This is sort of rewinding a bit. They have the second highest win rate with 600 games. So like
No, second highest play rate.
No, Web Warriors.
Web Warriors.
Yeah, Web Warriors. Yeah.
Yeah, so like they're tied for the highest win rate with the second most games.
No, I'm sorry. Avengers is like
No.
400 games above.
No.
everybody.
But
So Web
like,
Warriors has 600 games played, right?
Yeah, and then,
so
like-
they're super well played and have a super high win rate.
Yes.
Right? Because Pat was just saying,
Yeah.
so they're the most in the upper right of the Ghost
Yeah,
Year Index.
absolutely.
Cool, guys.
But Avengers are like not far behind them and like 400 games above them. Like the Ghost Year Index is hilarious looking right now.
It does seem more extreme for Marvel than it did for
Right,
Marvel.
like they're only like 5 or 6 percentage points behind Web Warriors, but have like double the games, which means that like so my general understanding of like the extremes of the Ghost Year Index. So if there was only one faction played, they would be a 50% win rate and they'd be super high. So the closer you get to your high play rate, the closer to 50 it pulls you. So there's like a natural gravity pulling them farther behind Web Warriors. So I think Avengers are like, their win rate should be higher, but there's a lot of players that aren't as good playing them. That's my personal theory.
it's a good way to try to draw attention away.
Yeah,
from
away
Web
from Web
Warriors.
Warriors. The whole premise of this was to be not a Web Warriors cast because I'm not asking me questions. But yeah, those are the 3. So, Nate,
Yeah.
why are Avengers, Criminal Syndicate, and Web Warriors the most played factions?
I mean, Avengers and Web Warriors, I think, are pretty easy to explain, right? I think I don't know if it's still true. At one point, Spider-Man was the most popular Marvel character, right? Just in general, he had the most name recognition, right? That's why he got a movie first back in the Sam Raimi days, right? So
right after Blade.
Was that after Blade?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I wonder why that is. All right, now it's a different.
It's because it's not because Blade could be not a superhero movie.
That makes sense. So yeah, the Web Warriors being popular, totally. It's very popular characters. They're very strong. They're very fun to play. Like that, I think makes perfect sense to everyone who hears it. Kind of the same story with Avengers, where like they're in the core box, so they're very easy to start with. They're very, very strong. They have, I think, still the biggest roster of characters to pick from. So if you're just trying to play your favorites, there's a high chance your favorites are in Avengers, right? They have an enormous stable. They have a bunch of characters, good cards, everything you could want. So when you're starting with the core box, and especially right now where I think Cabal is not in a good spot, if you start with the core box, your choice of which direction to go in if you're trying to be money conscious is really simple.
Yeah.
Right? Like Avengers or Cabal is not a super compelling choice at the moment. Criminals is definitely the most interesting one of these three to be here, right? They're definitely strong, which is going to draw players to them. I think the fact that they have such a unique leadership and play style helps draw people to them. Especially in a game like this, where you do have a lot of factions who kind of, there's nuances to their play style, but they just generally want to kind of tussle in the middle, right? Your Guardians, your Spider Foes, your X-Men, your X-Force, Cabal, right? There's a lot of these just kind of fight the other player. They have differences at Midnight Suns. They have differences in how they approach that problem, but they're doing it the same way. And there's only a couple of factions that make you play very differently, right? And Criminals are one of them. And they're also, I think it's super interesting to have a bad guy faction that's not about murder.
Yeah, but about killing people.
That's a pretty unique experience in any miniatures game, right? Usually the bad guy factions tend to be murder focused. They've gotten a bunch of new releases, right? They have a bunch of popular characters in there. I think, I'm not shocked to see it, but I wonder if you just left me to my own devices, how many I would guess before I would guess Criminal Syndicate.
It was not on my list. I was kind of under the impression for a long time the Criminal Syndicate were super strong, but super unpopular. So that way they that was why we hadn't seen them put up results. But now they're the third most popular faction since the patch, which is kind of wild to me.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
All right, you guys ready?
Because
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not.
This is the one that's supposed to be awful, right?
Yeah, this is the bad
awful
one.
All right.
I was about to say, this has taught me that everyone in Hollywood is just a wuss. But you know what? It just keeps getting worse.
It does.
Oh my God.
So,
Am I the one that's being a wuss out of these?
no, this one is definitely hotter than the last one. But the last one, I just got a bunch of it in my throat. So it was this very abrupt. But this is definitely getting worse.
It's wrapped around my tongue.
Yeah.
It's like a serpent coiled around my tongue and just squeezing with fire.
That is not at all in the same category as the prior one. There's
it is not.
just an enormous discontinuity there. Oh.
How are you doing, Nate?
Thinking about it.
Do you want to read the question? All right, I'm just going to try to get this out, and I'm going to suffer quietly. Alfredo's is a bit more of a high-level podcast. What is one piece of advice you would give a new MCP player who is familiar with minis games?
It's wild how much worse it is to try to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my... I'm just going to shut up.
Sitting here, I'm fine, but opening my mouth.
You say don't get it on your lips, and that's a good advice, but I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
Somebody talk. It's radio.
You can fix that.
Yeah, fix it in post.
No, this is the best part. This is what the people are paying for.
The advice I would give is, especially with Marvel, to pay attention to the crises.
Okay.
The game is almost always going to be won by how the crises shape out and how scoring works, right? So you want to make sure you're always thinking about, do the actions you take help you get points or help you deny your opponent's points? And approaching problems with that, I think, is going to lead to more dividends than any other simple advice I can think of. Fuck me.
Yeah, talking makes it worse.
Yeah, it does. It makes it way
definitely
worse.
Did not expect
Even just
that.
breathing is significantly worse.
I've been a mouth breather my whole life.
Yeah,
Same. Yep.
this is teaching me. I also have a dark fear of where question 10 is going now. I've just realized.
So, what, do you have any advice for?
Oh no, not at all.
Not at all.
For new Marvel players,
Fuck.
get some generic crisis and extract, like secure and extract tokens, and stop using the official ones because I think they're bad. The specific ones, not into it.
Just save the space in your kit.
Yeah, normalize generic tokens.
As soon as you stop talking, we have to move on.
Yeah, I know, but now I don't know. We're here. We might as well do it.
Yeah. Or what are you going to run? 21 miles of a marathon?
Well, yeah, but you try and do them as fast as you can.
Is that how you do marathons?
Well, I mean, you don't just I don't know. You don't repeatedly run 21 miles and then stop. Which, I don't know.
Be careful around your eyes, Nate.
Yeah, I'm using my knuckles.
I think that's still dangerous. Okay. You guys want to move on?
No.
I can sort of talk now. My whole face still hurts. But
All right.
is it question 9, not question 10? Was I guessing wrong?
Well, that was 8. We just did 8.
No, I know,
So-
but I'm worried about what's coming.
This is the, Kranked?
Oh, okay, nice.
What are we doing? Hand me the sauce.
I'm just looking for the chicken to save me from the sauce.
That's been my secret when we did it last time. Was maybe if I eat all the chicken, it'll...
Yeah. I think what's actually happening, though, is I'm just getting more of it on my face when I do that. My hands hurt. This is a bad sign. All right.
Adepticon is tomorrow.
It is tomorrow.
At the time of filming this.
Adepticon is also yesterday.
It's also yesterday, too, as well. We're filming this on the Friday of Adepticon because we're smart and we're like, let's give ourselves a mild form of food poisoning the day before the big event.
This is our team tournament.
Yeah. What are... We'll take any comers, anybody we can beat at this. So what are you guys taking tomorrow? And are you going to take a break from that faction and try something new afterwards? Or are you just going to keep jamming games with what you're bringing? Either you can go first. I don't care. I'm done talking.
Okay. I'll talk. It's fine. Nate has saved me. I don't have to play A-Force.
All my questions were about A-Force. Damn it.
Yeah, that's fine. So I have secured a Captain Falcon list and did a little bit of painting in the process, as is Adepticon tradition. It's just a bunch of dudes that I'm gonna slap together depending on how many points it is, and I'm gonna go from there. This is getting hotter as I talk. Am I gonna keep playing Avengers after Adepticon? Well, I'd have to buy the models, but maybe.
I mean, I think they fit, your earlier criteria you're talking about, right? Where you want rosters that are hard to fuck up and you want durable models to get a longer game. It's, we've talked about a lot on our podcast, on Discord. Fucking hell, talking makes it so much
I'm
worse.
so sorry.
I did say that earlier, knowing this question was coming. I looked at the iPad. So I cheated a little bit.
If you take the good Avengers, which there's a lot of them at the moment, right? Visions and Voodoos and both the Heroes for Hire and Iron Man and Falcon, those are all great characters and none of them have any particular weaknesses, either matchup or scenario wise, that it is very much what you're talking about, where you want to not have to think as much about the turn 0 decisions.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Oh, right. I have to answer this.
Yeah,
too.
you also have to answer
I
this
totally
question.
forgot. What are we
You're like,
waiting
I helped Pat answer. Does that count?
I talked. You know what I mean? I was just like, did I talk? Yes, good. Yeah, so I'm playing Guardians. I've got a different version of Guardians than what I played at LVO. Ghost Rider has left the building. X-23 has entered. I like both versions a lot. I haven't decided which one I like more. The X-23 one and another 2-pointer means I get to go super duper wide. Right, like I can play 8 models at 20, which is pretty fun.
Are you still using those die-based health trackers?
Yes.
You just bought another set of them.
Well, they come in sets of 8.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was perfect. Because I kind of knew when I was buying them that, like,
They came in 6s.
Yeah.
no. Well, they have different listings on their store.
okay.
Find the listing for 8.
Okay.
Will I keep playing them afterwards? Probably. I've felt a little bit of the itch to play something else. Like, I've been thinking about X-Men, because I'm always thinking about X-Men. I might play
But you're not playing them. That's why they're not in the top 3.
I might play Brotherhood. I played some Brotherhood at one of the local events in, I think it was the January tournament I took Brotherhood to, because it was just after Rogue and Juggernaut came out, so I got them assembled the night before and played them, and I had a lot of fun with that, right? But also, I just think there's still more to do with Guardians. I think they're deeper than they get credit for, because they are spoiled for choice in models, both in what they play and what they splash, that I'm probably just going to keep doing more Guardians science and seeing what else is out there.
I'm going to answer this one. Everyone knows I'm playing webs. But I am feeling called. Like, Shield is like it's like an even more Web Warriors faction. And I'm very called to Shield. But I'm also kind of interested in the like Senor Guardian or Senor Wakanda they've been playing, that Leaf's been spouting. The like,
That seems pretty Vincy.
yeah, playing like Panther, Killmonger, Thanos, Senor Thanos. For those, God, it gets worse. It's just like, if I leave my tongue in my mouth.
Space reality Thanos.
Yeah, space reality. Thank you, SR Thanos. They just seem super fun at 16. Just being like, there's a whole lot of murder and a whole lot of scenario presence. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I really want to try Senior Thanos and Guardians. I think there's total value in there too.
I don't want more people to play Thanos.
And
That's
like,
not something I ever want to see.
building Thanos. The reason I think it's exciting is that like Wakanda brings a bunch of like really good dice fixing, and then you play reality Thanos, so you already have really good dice that get even more benefit from fixing.
Sure.
I definitely think that's like the best Senior Thanos splash I've seen, just because Thanos uses the Wakanda leadership so well.
Absolutely, like he's so hard to kill with it, and like,
Yeah.
and then like when you Death's Decree either of those other two, right? It just gets bananas. Like
Death Decree Panther when he has Mantle up is a lot of fun.
yeah, it seems nuts. Like, I don't know. I'm really interested in that. I have like half a model to paint, and like the roster is set because I thought I was going to play Wakanda before Web Warriors came out. That interests me a lot. All right, guys. Will you hand me that bottle of hot sauce? This is the Last Dab Apollo. And apparently it's tradition around here to put a little extra on the last wing. You don't have to if you don't want to.
I think you got that part of the script perfectly correct.
I
haven't watched it in a long time, but...
Oh, God. Oh, no. I shouldn't have gone first.
Nope.
I don't like the way it smells, but yeah, I guess I will.
Okay.
I'm gonna think about my choices.
All right. I'm not gonna go nuts. What is this? Oh, I'm not doing that.
Oh, I don't want anybody to call me out. You want to call Nate? Oh yeah,
I got a little. It went a little.
I mean, you got to join now, Nate, right?
Yeah.
I'm just.
I mean, you don't have to.
Cheat and spread it around though.
I see people go effing bananas with this.
Nope.
That sounds terrible.
I like myself too much.
All right, well, here we go.
All right.
2 million Scoville.
Good job, guys.
Here we go, guys.
Let's get it over with.
No, it's fine.
Don't
worry about it.
It's not as bad.
Yeah, I'm waiting for death.
Yeah,
So
no,
far.
No, so far it's fine, but that means it won't be
So,
later.
like, I feel like there's less pain, but my body is reacting differently. Like, I put my tongue on it, and my hair is just like wet. Like it feels like I'm bald, and like my scalp is just like, hello. There's water up here.
I just feel numb to it now. Like it like got to the point where like this just my body doesn't know how to handle it because it just feels wrong. Like that it's just like, no, this can't be what you're actually feeling because this sucks.
All right. With millions of Scoville coursing through you guys, right? Top of Spice Mountain. What is your spiciest, most controversial MCP take or opinion?
The fixed widgets, I don't like.
You don't that like.
I don't like the 1 through 5 widgets.
Okay.
Very much. I just want inches.
You just want inches?
Yeah. I like steppers. I want inches. I want proxy bases. Give me all the dumb measuring. But like keep the thing where like I don't mind that they're like not very granular. That's fine. And like I think you can get most of the effect of like placement being less critically important than it was in Guild Ball by just having the numbers be big.
Okay.
I don't really think that's a result of specific widgets, not inches. I'm mostly talking so I don't think about how
It's
my
getting
face
worse.
feels.
It's getting worse. I think the alcohol makes it worse, but it makes me feel
No,
better.
it definitely helps.
Nate?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Pat. Put a proxy base in the game. But I think... what's a good one? Oh. I think people are way too terrified of playing the uneven extracts when they don't have priority. I think people really overstate how much of a problem it is when their opponent gets the center spider infected, right? It definitely, it isn't great to start a point down. But like the models who can grab it and retreat aren't being played very much right now. Like Angela and Amazing Spider-Man and Jim Loki are not at all popular. Like the least popular they've been since their releases.
Interesting.
I think a lot of the tools people are bringing anyways, like Voodoo and Black Cat, are really good at offsetting your opponent getting an extract up on you. And I also think, going last should naturally give you an advantage on the secure. So it's okay if your opponent has a slight advantage on the extract, right? Theoretically, that helps balance it out a little bit. And I just think there's so much variance in what a game of Marvel ends up being, right? And how extracts change hands and who dies where, that your opponent having one victory point over you on turn one is just, like, it's not good. Obviously, you would rather that not happen. But I think that's less of a problem than when you try to play Skrulls and your opponent finds it on the opposite side of the board or when you don't expect it to. I think that disaster is way worse than having to play out of the hole of your opponent having one extra VP turn one.
Yeah, I think the thing with that is like when you play the uneven, like guaranteed extracts, you're like guaranteed to have that mild feels bad moment.
Yep.
Whereas like, I don't know, 1 in 10 Skrulls games, you just get totally blown out by it. But like normally it's kind of either a non-factor or kind of just more random. Wow, talking sucks after I waited a while.
Yeah.
What the hell?
All right. Well, let me take a load off your hands or your mouth
Yeah.
real quick. I think my spiciest take is that reposition is fucking fine. It is balance is a fine card. Herb 1 plays have never been good. They'll never be good. I think you can just play good out of it. Spending 2 tactics cards and Wong for 4 points on turn 1 is not enough advantage for the resources expended. I think you can just totally play good out of it. Play any model that repositions. Like, just don't let them do it to you turn 2 and dig your way out of it. I think in Inhumans, where you don't have to also play Wong and you don't have to play the tactics card, I think that's legitimately good. But if a D tier faction gets something that's legitimately good, who cares? I'm excited to play some Inhumans. I think they're cool.
So I agree with you that reposition is a fine card. I think
That doesn't need a ratted, right? Doesn't need fixed.
no. I think herb just needs fix.
Oh, okay.
How do you have to fix the herb?
I think there's a whole bunch of ways you could fix it. You could make it worth points to hold it and worth less points to score it.
I agree. I would like to see, personally, I would like to see herb lose its one movement shenanigans, be worth 1 point to stand on it, 1 point to hold it. And you can just run around with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All the shenanigans about it's worth 2 points. Like maybe 3, but I don't know.
Huh.
I think making it easier to score and worth less would be better overall.
And I would like it to be more granular. I hate the all or nothing everything in the game.
I do disagree with you, though, that you said all herb plans are bad. I think the Convocation Juggernaut one is legitimately good. I think Juggernaut herb plays, if you can do it that quickly, are terrifying.
I wanna see it on the table. I'm sure that it's really good into some things. But also I think like AMG did a really good job. I don't know necessarily like it was great. It was like the best for the game, and maybe that's up for grabs, that like the random extracts. But what it does do is hide mistakes they make really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, hired muscle would have been less of a problem.
In this setup.
Yep.
I'm trying to like dip my lips in the water as I drink it.
Yeah, that is probably the part of me that's feeling it the most.
Okay. So with all that said, right, I think we're going to call it here. And with that, we've been an extremely spicy size 3 taco truck.